I never thought I'd spend my 68th birthday in a courtroom, watching my daughter-in-law cry fake tears in front of a judge. But there I was, Evelyn Harper, retired English teacher, widow, grandmother, being accused of abuse by the woman I'd welcomed into my home. "Your Honor," Claudia's lawyer said, his voice dripping with sympathy, "my client has endured months of harassment and psychological manipulation. Mrs. Harper's deteriorating mental state has created an unsafe environment for my client and her 6-year-old daughter." I sat perfectly still, my hands folded in my lap. Let her perform, I thought. Let her think she's winning. Because what Claudia didn't know, what her expensive lawyer didn't know, was that I had been documenting everything for the past 4 months. Every lie. Every manipulation. Every cold calculation hidden behind that perfect smile. How did I get here? Let me go back 18 months, to when I still believed in her. My house sits on Maple Street in a quiet neighborhood of Portland, Oregon, a craftsman-style home that Robert and I bought in 1982. After he died 3 years ago from a sudden heart attack, the place felt too big. Too quiet. I kept busy with my book club, volunteer work at the library, and Sunday dinners with my son. Marcus was my only child. At 40, he'd built a solid career as a civil engineer but had terrible luck with relationships. So when he showed up one spring Sunday with Claudia chin, glowing like I hadn't seen since he was a teenager, I wanted to believe. "Mom, this is Claudia," he said, unable to stop smiling. She's the one." Claudia was beautiful, sharp cheekbones, glossy black hair, designer clothes that fit perfectly. At 34, she managed a boutique in the Pearl District and had an easy confidence that made you want to trust her. "Mrs. Harper, Marcus talks about you constantly," she said, her handshake firm. "And this house, it's absolutely charming. How long have you lived here?" 42 years, I said, serving the roast chicken I'd prepared. "My husband and I raised Marcus here. It must be worth quite a bit now, with how the neighborhood's appreciated," she said, then laughed lightly. "Sorry, occupational hazard. I'm always evaluating properties." It seemed like innocent conversation. Maybe it was. Maybe I'm remembering it differently now, painting red flags onto moments that felt normal at the time. They married 8 months later in a small ceremony at a winery in Willamette Valley. I cried watching my son take his vows, grateful he'd found someone after so long alone. The first year seemed fine. They lived in a condo downtown, visited every few weeks. Claudia brought expensive wine and made intelligent conversation about books I'd mentioned reading. When she got pregnant, Marcus was euphoric. "A grandfather," he kept saying, shaking his head in wonder. Dad would have been so excited. Emma was born on a gray October morning, 7 pounds, 2 ounces, with Marcus's brown eyes. I helped those first chaotic months, coming over twice a week to watch the baby while Claudia rested. She seemed genuinely grateful, making me tea, asking my advice about feeding schedules and sleep training. But small things nagged at me. The way she'd photograph documents I left on their coffee table. How she'd steer conversations toward my finances, retirement accounts, property taxes, Medicare coverage. Once, I caught her in their bedroom on the phone, and she went silent the moment she saw me. "Just talking to my mom," she said quickly. Too quickly. I pushed the unease aside. New mothers are stressed. I was being paranoid. Then, about 14 months ago, everything shifted. Marcus called on a Tuesday night, his voice tight. "Mom, we need to talk. Can we come by tomorrow?" They arrived with Emma, now almost 2. The little girl ran to me immediately, and I scooped her up, grateful for her warmth. "Mom," Marcus said, sitting heavily on the couch. "Our landlord is selling the building. We have 30 days to find a new place. How much do you need for a deposit?" I asked immediately. "I have savings." "Everything's so expensive now," Claudia interrupted, her voice small. 2 bedrooms start at $2,200 a month, plus first and last month's rent. And daycare is $1,400 a month if I go back to work." She trailed off, looking at Marcus helplessly. I knew what was coming before he asked. "Mom, this house has 4 bedrooms. You only use one. Could we stay here?" "Just temporarily. 6 months, maybe less. Until we save up enough." I looked at my son's exhausted face, at my granddaughter playing with her stuffed rabbit on the floor, at Claudia watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Of course," I said. "Family helps family." Claudia's smile was radiant. "Thank you, Mom. You have no idea what this means to us." But when she hugged me, there was something off about it. The embrace was perfect, the right duration, the right pressure, but it felt rehearsed. They moved in a week later. The first month was fine. Claudia cooked elaborate dinners, insisted on cleaning, played the perfect daughter-in-law. But Marcus worked long hours, leaving early and returning after 8. Claudia and I were alone together most days, and slowly, the mask began to slip. She'd rearrange my furniture without asking. "It flows better this way," she'd say when I protested gently. She started going through my mail. "Just trying to help you stay organized, Mom. At your age, it's easy to miss important bills." I found her in my bedroom one afternoon, photographing my bank statements with her phone. "Claudia, what are you doing?" She didn't even look embarrassed. "Making digital copies. In case something happens to the originals. You should really keep these in a fireproof safe." When I tried to talk to Marcus about it, he sighed. "Mom, please. Claudia's just trying to help. She knows you've been a little forgetful lately." "Forgetful?" "Marcus, I'm not. You left the stove on last week. And you couldn't remember where you parked at the grocery store. I'm worried about you." I stared at my son. I hadn't left the stove on. I'd been at the library that afternoon. And I'd parked exactly where I always parked. Claudia had given me wrong directions to my car as a joke. That's when I realized she was gaslighting me. And she'd already started working on Marcus. The truth came on a Tuesday afternoon, 4 months into their stay. I'd had a dental appointment that ended early. When I came home, I heard Claudia's voice from the kitchen, sharp and excited. "I'm telling you, Vanessa, it's almost done. The old lady trusts me completely. I've got copies of everything: deed, insurance policies, retirement accounts." I froze in the entryway, barely breathing. "Marcus is clueless," she continued. "He works 80-hour weeks and barely notices what's happening. I've been documenting her confusion, leaving the stove on, forgetting conversations. I even found a doctor who'll sign off on a dementia diagnosis for $3,000. My legs went weak. I had to lean against the wall. Once we get her declared incompetent, Marcus becomes her guardian. I can forge his signature on anything. We sell this house, it's worth at least $650,000 now, and disappear. By the time anyone figures it out, we'll be in Costa Rica with new identities." There was a pause. "Yeah, Marcus will be devastated, but he'll get over it. Men always do." "And the kid?" She laughed, cold and sharp. "Vanessa, You know I never wanted to be a mother. Emma was just part of the long game. Made me look more committed, more family-oriented. Marcus can have her in the divorce. I thought I might vomit. This woman, this stranger living in my house, sleeping under my roof, had been planning to destroy everything from the beginning. I backed out silently, walked to my car, and drove to my friend Helen's house. Helen and I had taught at the same high school for 20 years before retiring. She'd also been through a nasty divorce and knew how to handle crisis. "Evelyn, you need a lawyer," she said immediately after I told her everything. "Not tomorrow. Today." She called James Chen, a family law attorney she knew from her divorce. We met at his office that afternoon. James was in his late 50s, graying hair, sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He listened to my story without interrupting, taking occasional notes. "Mrs. Harper," he said finally, "what you're describing is elder fraud, conspiracy, and possibly worse. But we need evidence. What you overheard isn't enough, it's hearsay. Can you record conversations in your house? Is that legal? Oregon is a one-party consent state. If you're present during the conversation or you own the property, you can legally record. But here's what I recommend: security cameras." He explained that many elderly people install cameras for safety, falls, medical emergencies, home security. It wouldn't raise suspicion. That evening, I told Claudia that my doctor had recommended cameras after I'd mentioned feeling unsteady sometimes. She couldn't object without seeming suspicious. "That's really smart, Mom," she said, though her jaw tightened. Safety first. The technician installed 3 cameras the next day: living room, kitchen, upstairs hallway. All motion activated, cloud-backed storage. Then I started documenting everything myself. I bought a small audio recorder and kept it in my cardigan pocket. I took photos of documents she moved. I kept a detailed journal of every strange incident. And I pretended to be the confused old woman she wanted everyone to see. The cameras captured more than I expected. 3 days after installation, the footage showed Claudia turning on the stove burner while I was in my bedroom, then discovering it 20 minutes later when I came downstairs. "Mom, the stove was on high. What if you'd started a fire?" Her concern looked so genuine. If I hadn't seen the footage, I would have believed her myself. She hid my reading glasses in the garage, then expressed worry when I couldn't find them. She switched my vitamins with different pills. She called Marcus at work to report my episodes. The worst footage came 2 weeks in. Late one night, after Marcus had gone to bed, Claudia sat in the living room on her phone. The camera captured her side of the conversation. "Vanessa, I need you to be ready to notarize documents. The lawyer I found says once we have the dementia paperwork, we can move fast. No, Marcus won't suspect anything. I'm his wife. He trusts me. The plan is to sell the house while the old woman is in a nursing facility. By the time the paperwork clears, we're gone." She paced, agitated. "I know it's taking longer than we thought, but it's a $650,000 house, Vanessa. That's worth the wait." "Yeah, I'm still telling Marcus I'm looking for jobs. He feels guilty that I'm sacrificing my career to stay home with Emma." She laughed. "As if I'd ever go back to retail." I took all the footage to James. He watched in silence, his expression growing grimmer. "This is enough," he said finally. "We have conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse, forgery. Mrs. Harper, we need to act soon. She's escalating." "What about Marcus? When do I tell him?" James leaned back in his chair. Not yet. He's emotionally involved. She's been manipulating him for 2 years. If you tell him now, he might confront her, and she'll destroy evidence or disappear. We need everything in place first. How long? Give me 2 weeks. I'm going to coordinate with Adult Protective Services and get a court order to freeze your assets. That way, even if she tries to move forward, she can't touch anything. Those 2 weeks were the longest of my life. I smiled at breakfast. I let Claudia help me organize my papers. I pretended not to notice when she photographed my passport and social security card. But at night, alone in my room, I cried for my son. For the marriage that had been a lie from day one. For my granddaughter, who was just a prop in her mother's scheme. Then Claudia made her move. She came home one afternoon with a woman in her 50s, carrying a clipboard. Mom, this is Dr. Patricia Walsh. She's a geriatric specialist. Given some of the concerning incidents lately, I thought it would be good for you to have a full cognitive evaluation. Dr. Walsh smiled professionally. It's completely routine, Mrs. Harper. Just a few questions to establish a baseline. I recognized the play immediately. This was the fake Dr. Claudia had mentioned, the one willing to diagnose dementia for cash. I appreciate the concern, I said calmly, but I already see Dr. Morrison. If there were any issues, he would have mentioned it at my physical last month. Claudia's smile tightened. Mom, Dr. Morrison is a general practitioner. Dr. Walsh specializes in cognitive decline. It can't hurt to get a second opinion. I'm not interested. Mom. I said no, Claudia. Something flickered in her eyes. Anger, quickly suppressed. That night, she worked on Marcus. I heard them in their bedroom, her voice rising and falling in practiced concern. The next morning, Marcus came to me looking haggard. Mom, we need to talk about getting you evaluated. Claudia's worried. Marcus, I'm fine. You left the stove on 3 times last month. You forgot your dentist appointment. Last week you couldn't remember Emma's birthday party. Each accusation was a lie she'd planted. I felt my chest tighten with rage. Son, I'm not sick. Claudia is manipulating you. Mom, please don't start with conspiracy theories about Claudia. She's trying to help. Why are you being so resistant to a simple evaluation? I saw it then, she'd done her work too well. My own son thought I was paranoid and declining. Fine, I said quietly. Set up an appointment with Dr. Morrison. I'll get evaluated by my own doctor. Marcus looked relieved. Thank you, Mom. That's all we're asking. But I knew Claudia wouldn't let it end there. She needed her paid diagnosis, not a real one. I called James immediately. We're out of time, I said. She's pushing for a fake medical evaluation, and Marcus believes her. If she gets that paperwork, I'll file tomorrow morning, James said. Emergency protective order to freeze your assets and remove Claudia from the house. Can you stay somewhere else tonight? I'm not leaving my home. Evelyn. I'm not leaving. If she wants a fight, she can have one. James filed the protective order at 8 a.m. By noon, a sheriff's deputy was at my door with paperwork. Marcus had just gotten home for lunch. He stood in the entryway, reading the court order, his face draining of color. Mom, what is this? A restraining order against Claudia? Asset freeze? What the hell is going on? Claudia came downstairs, Emma on her hip. What's wrong? The deputy turned to her. Mrs. Harper, I need you to pack a bag. You're being removed from this residence pending a hearing on allegations of elder fraud and abuse. What? Claudia's shock looked genuine. This is insane. Marcus, tell them. I don't understand, Marcus said, looking at me. Mom, why would you? Mrs. Harper, the deputy interrupted, you have 30 minutes to collect your belongings. I live here. Claudia's voice went shrill. You can't just throw me out of my own home. This house is owned solely by Evelyn Harper. You have no legal claim to it. You need to leave now, or I'll arrest you for trespassing. I watched Claudia's face transform. The mask cracked, just for a moment, and pure hatred flashed in her eyes. Marcus looked between us, completely lost. Mom, please. Tell me what's happening. Call James Chen, I said quietly. He'll explain everything. Marcus met with James that afternoon. I stayed home with Emma, who kept asking where her mommy went. My heart broke every time. Grandma, is Mommy coming back for dinner? Not tonight, sweetheart. But Daddy will be home soon. When Marcus returned 3 hours later, he looked like he'd aged 10 years. He walked past me without speaking, went upstairs, and I heard his bedroom door close. I gave him an hour, then knocked softly. Marcus? Silence. Son, I know you're hurting. The door opened. Marcus's eyes were red. Is it all true? Everything James showed me? Yes. The whole marriage? From the beginning? I'm sorry. He turned away from me, his shoulders shaking. She never loved me. Emma was just part of the plan. And I dragged you into this. I brought her into your home. I stepped into the room and wrapped my arms around my son. He collapsed against me, sobbing like he hadn't since he was a little boy. You didn't know, I whispered. She was a professional, Marcus. She fooled everyone. How did you figure it out? So I told him. About overhearing the phone call, the cameras, the documentation. About James's advice to wait, to build an ironclad case before acting. Why didn't you tell me sooner, he asked, his voice hollow. Because she'd already worked on you. You thought I was declining, that I was confused. If I'd come to you with accusations, you would have thought it was paranoia. I needed proof. He was quiet for a long time. Then, what happens now? There's a hearing in 3 days. James will present all the evidence. If the judge agrees there's probable cause, it goes to criminal court. She'll go to prison? Probably. Marcus nodded slowly. Good. The next day, Claudia's lawyer filed a counterpetition. She was seeking full custody of Emma, claiming I had alienated her from her daughter using false accusations. She also demanded half of Marcus's retirement accounts and spousal support. She's desperate, James explained when he called. She knows she's cornered, so she's trying to create leverage for a settlement. Don't worry, we have recordings of her saying she never wanted Emma. No judge will give her custody. But the accusations still hurt. The idea that I would weaponize a child against her mother, even a mother like Claudia. The hearing was set for Thursday at 2 p.m. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, wood paneling, fluorescent lights, the seal of Oregon above the judge's bench. I sat with James at the plaintiff's table. Claudia and her lawyer, a smooth-looking man named Trevor Davis, sat opposite. Marcus was there, in the front row, holding Emma. My granddaughter waved at me, and I waved back, trying to smile. Judge Sarah Martinez entered, a black woman in her early 60s with intelligent eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. This is a preliminary hearing on an emergency protective order filed by Evelyn Harper against Claudia Harper, née Chen. Mr. Chen, you may present your case. James stood. Your Honor, Mrs. Evelyn Harper is a 68-year-old widow living on a fixed income. 4 months ago, her son and daughter-in-law moved into her home due to financial hardship. What Mrs. Harper didn't know was that her daughter-in-law had been planning to defraud her since before the marriage even took place. He outlined the scheme methodically: the fake doctor, the forged documents, the gaslighting campaign. He played selected audio clips of Claudia discussing the fraud with her friend Vanessa. Claudia's face was stone. She whispered urgently to her lawyer several times. When James finished, Trevor Davis stood. Your Honor, my client denies these allegations completely. These recordings are taken out of context. Mrs. Claudia Harper has been a devoted daughter-in-law, caring for an elderly woman whose mental faculties are clearly declining. This protective order is a product of Mrs. Harper's paranoia and cognitive decline, manipulated by outside influences who have their own agendas. Judge Martinez turned to me. Mrs. Harper, do you have any medical documentation of your mental state? James handed over a folder. Comprehensive neuropsychological evaluation completed last week by Dr. Richard Morrison, Mrs. Harper's physician of 12 years. The results show no cognitive impairment whatsoever. The judge reviewed the documents, then looked at Claudia. Mrs. Harper, did you discuss having your mother-in-law declared incompetent? Those conversations were hypothetical, Claudia said, her voice steady. I was worried about her safety. Did you or did you not contact a Dr. Patricia Walsh about providing a dementia diagnosis in exchange for payment? Claudia hesitated. I consulted several doctors. That's not what I asked. The courtroom was silent. Your Honor, Trevor interjected, my client. I asked your client a direct question, counselor. Mrs. Harper, did you offer money to a doctor for a fraudulent diagnosis? Claudia's jaw tightened. I was exploring options for getting her proper care. Yes or no? Yes. But. Thank you. Judge Martinez made a note. Continue, Mr. Chen. James played the clip where Claudia discussed selling the house and fleeing the country. Then the one where she said Emma was just part of the plan. Marcus made a choked sound. Emma looked up at him, confused. Your Honor, James said, we also have video evidence showing Mrs. Claudia Harper deliberately creating incidents to make her mother-in-law appear confused, turning on the stove and blaming Mrs. Harper, hiding items, switching medications. I'd like to see that video. James queued it up on the courtroom monitor. The footage was damning, Claudia turning on the stove, checking to make sure she was alone, then returning 20 minutes later to discover it and call Marcus. Judge Martinez watched without expression. When it finished, she turned to Claudia. Do you have an explanation for this? Claudia's composure finally cracked. She set me up. She installed those cameras to trap me. Mrs. Harper installed security cameras in her own home, which is completely legal. What's not legal is what those cameras captured you doing. Trevor stood quickly. Your Honor, may I have a moment with my client? 5 minutes. Trevor and Claudia huddled in the corner, his voice low and urgent. I saw her shaking her head repeatedly. Finally, Trevor returned to the table alone. Your Honor, my client would like to make a statement. Judge Martinez nodded. Proceed. Claudia stood, her hands trembling slightly. Your Honor, I made mistakes. I was under enormous financial pressure, and I made poor decisions. But I never intended to harm anyone. I never wanted to hurt my mother-in-law or my family. I was desperate, and I wasn't thinking clearly. It was a decent performance, the right amount of remorse, vulnerability. But I'd seen her act before. Are you admitting to the allegations? Judge Martinez asked. I'm admitting that some of my actions were inappropriate. I should have been more transparent about my concerns regarding Mrs. Harper's health. I should have communicated better with my husband. But fraud? No, Your Honor. I never stole anything, never forged anything. I was just scared and confused. James stood immediately. Your Honor, we have recordings of Mrs. Harper explicitly discussing forging documents and selling the house without consent. That's not poor communication. That's criminal conspiracy. I was venting to a friend. Claudia's voice rose. I never actually did any of those things. Because Mrs. Harper stopped you, James shot back. You had already contacted the fraudulent doctor. You had already photographed confidential documents. You had already begun the gaslighting campaign. The only reason you didn't succeed is because you were caught. Judge Martinez held up a hand. That's enough. I've heard sufficient testimony. Here's my ruling. The emergency protective order stands. Mrs. Claudia Harper is prohibited from returning to Mrs. Evelyn Harper's residence or contacting her directly. All of Mrs. Harper's assets remain frozen to her and her son only. Mrs. Claudia Harper has no access. She turned to Marcus. Mr. Harper, I'm granting you temporary sole custody of your daughter pending a full custody hearing. Mrs. Claudia Harper may have supervised visitation twice weekly at the Family Services Center. Claudia's face went white. You're taking my daughter? You admitted on tape that you never wanted her, that she was part of the plan. I'm not confident you have that child's best interests at heart. I didn't mean that. I was upset. Enough. Finally, I'm referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for criminal investigation. There's probable cause to believe crimes were committed. Judge Martinez banged her gavel. We're adjourned. Claudia stood frozen as the courtroom emptied. Trevor was already packing his briefcase, clearly done with her. As I walked past with James, she grabbed my arm. This isn't over. I looked at her hand until she released me. Yes, Claudia. It is. Outside, Marcus held Emma close. What do I tell her? He asked, looking lost. The truth, in words she can understand. That mommy made some bad choices and needs time away. That she's safe with you and Grandma. Will she be okay? I touched his cheek. She will. Because she has us. The district attorney filed charges 2 weeks later: conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse, attempted forgery, filing false reports. Claudia was arrested at the hotel where she'd been staying, still trying to coordinate with her friend Vanessa to flee the state. They arrested Vanessa too, as an accomplice. And Dr. Patricia Walsh, whose medical license had been suspended 3 years earlier for similar schemes. The trial was scheduled for 4 months out. Claudia's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the DA wanted to make an example of elder fraud. Marcus filed for divorce immediately. Oregon is a no-fault state, but the circumstances meant Claudia would get nothing: no property, no alimony, no retirement funds. She'd signed a prenup anyway, something she'd insisted on to appear less gold-diggerish. It protected her, she'd thought. The hardest part was Emma. At 2.5, She didn't fully understand why Mommy was gone. She'd ask for her at bedtime, and Marcus would hold her while she cried. I took her to a child psychologist, Dr. Lisa Gwynn, who specialized in family trauma. She's young enough that the memories will fade, Dr. Gwynn assured us. What matters now is stability, consistency, love. She has that with you. Marcus and Emma stayed with me. We established new routines, breakfast together, walks to the park, story time before bed. Slowly, Emma stopped asking for Claudia. She started calling me Gram instead of Grandma, her own special name for me. Marcus threw himself into therapy, unpacking the manipulation, the red flags he'd missed, the guilt of bringing Claudia into our lives. He was angry, at her, at himself, at the universe for the unfairness of it all. I don't know if I'll ever trust anyone again, he said one night, after Emma was in bed. You will, I said. Not right away. But eventually. You're too good a man to let her poison you forever. How are you so calm about all this? She tried to steal everything from you. I considered that. I spent 40 years teaching teenagers, Marcus. I've seen every kind of manipulation, every kind of lie. Claudia was just better at it than most. But I also learned something teaching all those years, the truth always surfaces. Always. It might take time, but it comes out. You really believe that? I have to. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution presented all the evidence, recordings, videos, testimony from the fake doctor who flipped for a reduced sentence. Claudia's defense was that she'd been under duress, suffering from depression, not thinking clearly. The jury didn't buy it. They found her guilty on all counts. Judge Martinez sentenced her to 6 years in federal prison. Claudia looked at me as they led her away in handcuffs. Not with hatred this time. With something else. Defeat, maybe. Or just exhaustion. I felt no triumph. Just sadness for the waste of it all. Life moved forward. Marcus eventually started dating again, carefully, slowly. He brought his girlfriend Sarah to meet me after 6 months, nervous as a teenager. Mom, if you don't like her, just tell me. I trust your judgment. Sarah was a pediatric nurse, divorced, no kids. She had kind eyes and laughed easily. We talked about books over coffee while Marcus watched anxiously. She's good people, I told him later. But take your time. I am. I promise. Emma started preschool. She made friends, finger-painted, came home singing songs. The nightmares about Claudia faded. Helen and I returned to our book club. The other members knew what had happened, small town, word travels, but they had the grace not to pry. We talked about novels and drank wine and pretended life was normal. Because it was normal. This was life, joy and betrayal, loss and recovery, the constant work of moving forward. On my 69th birthday, Marcus made breakfast, pancakes shaped like hearts, Emma's idea. Sarah came over with flowers. We ate on the back porch, watching the morning sun filter through the maple trees. Make a wish, Graham. Emma said, bouncing with excitement. I closed my eyes over the candles. What did I wish for? Not for the past to be different. Not for Claudia to have been someone else. Those wishes were wasted on things you couldn't change. I wished for more mornings like this. For my son's healing. For my granddaughter's happiness. For the wisdom to know what battles to fight and which to let go. Simple wishes. Quiet wishes. The kind that actually come true. I blew out the candles, and Emma cheered. Marcus put his arm around my shoulders. Happy birthday, Mom. I don't say it enough, but thank you. For everything. You don't have to thank me for being your mother. It's the best job I ever had. Later, after they'd gone home, I sat in the living room where the cameras had once recorded Claudia's schemes. They were gone now, we didn't need them anymore. The house was quiet. But it wasn't the hollow silence of grief I'd felt after Robert died. This was peaceful silence. Safe silence. Claudia had tried to take this from me. This house, this life, this family. She'd failed. Not because I was smarter or stronger or more righteous. But because I'd been willing to do the work, document the truth, trust the right people, wait for the right moment. And because I'd had the simple advantage she'd underestimated, I was telling the truth, and she wasn't. In the end, that made all the difference. 2 years later, I got a letter from Claudia. The prison had forwarded it after checking it for threats. Dear Evelyn, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even forgive myself. But I've had a lot of time to think in here, and I wanted you to know that I understand now what I did. I was raised to see people as marks, transactions. My father was a con man, did you know that? He died in prison when I was 12. I swore I'd never be like him, but somewhere along the way, I became exactly like him. When I met Marcus, I saw an opportunity. I didn't see a person. I didn't let myself see a person, because that would have made it harder. I don't know if I'm capable of loving anyone. But I know I destroyed something good, and I know Emma deserves better than me. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that you were right about everything, and I'm sorry. Claudia. I read the letter twice, then folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer. Was it genuine? Maybe. Or maybe it was another con, an attempt to set up a future parole appeal with evidence of remorse. I'd never know for sure. And that was okay. I didn't need her redemption or her apology. I didn't need her to be reformed or broken or anything at all. I just needed her to be far away from my family. The letter stayed in the drawer. I never responded. Some conversations, I learned, you don't need to have. On Emma's 5th birthday, we had a party in the backyard. She invited her preschool class, and they ran wild through the garden, eating cake and playing tag. Marcus and Sarah were officially engaged now. Emma called Sarah Miss Sarah and seemed comfortable with her, which was all we could ask for. As the sun set and parents came to collect their sugar-high children, Emma climbed into my lap. Graham, will you always live here? I plan to, sweet pea. Why? Because I like it here. It feels safe. I hugged her close, my heart full. Then I'll stay as long as you need me. She snuggled deeper into my arms. Forever? Forever, I promised. And I meant it. But life, I learned, is never as simple as villains and heroes. 3 years after Claudia went to prison, Dr. Nguyen asked to meet with me privately. Emma was now 5 and thriving, but the psychologist had something on her mind. Mrs. Harper, I want to discuss something sensitive. Emma's been asking about her mother. My stomach tightened. What kind of questions? Where she is. Why she left. Whether she did something wrong that made her mommy go away. Dr. Nguyen leaned forward. This is developmentally normal. Children need to construct narratives about their origins, even painful ones. What are you suggesting? That eventually, not now, but in the next year or two, Emma might benefit from some form of contact with Claudia. Supervised, limited, therapeutic. I felt my jaw clench. That woman psychologically abused her. She said on tape that Emma didn't matter. I know. And I'm not suggesting regular visitation or anything that would give Claudia power. But Emma is creating a story about why her mother isn't here, and children blame themselves. If she can see, in a controlled setting, that her mother is simply a flawed human being, not a monster, but also not someone Emma did anything to lose, it might help. I was quiet for a long time. I need to think about this. And talk to Marcus. Of course. I'm just planting the seed. Emma's well-being is what matters, and sometimes that means complicated choices. That night, I brought it up with Marcus. He was helping Emma with a puzzle at the kitchen table while Sarah made dinner. Absolutely not, he said immediately. I'm not exposing her to that woman again. I'm not saying I agree, I said carefully. But Dr. Nguyen made some points. Mom, Claudia tried to destroy you. She used Emma as a prop. She doesn't deserve to see her. This isn't about what Claudia deserves. It's about what Emma needs. Sarah turned from the stove. Can I say something? Marcus nodded, and I gestured for her to continue. I work with kids in the hospital who have parents who hurt them. Addicts, abusers, people who made terrible choices. And one thing I've learned is that kids need to know their story. They need to see their biological parents as real people, flawed, broken, human, so they don't spend their whole lives wondering what if. What if seeing Claudia traumatizes her again? Marcus asked. What if not seeing her leaves a hole that nothing else can fill? Sarah countered gently. I'm not saying rush into it. But maybe don't completely close the door. I watched Marcus wrestle with it, the protectiveness warring with pragmatism. I need time to think, he said finally. That's fair, I said. We didn't make any decisions that year. But the question lingered. And then something unexpected happened. James Ching called me one morning. Evelyn, I got a letter from Claudia's lawyer. She's up for parole review in 6 months, and she's asking if you or Marcus would be willing to provide testimony. Testimony? For or against? That's up to you. She's apparently completed every rehabilitation program the prison offers: addiction counseling, cognitive behavioral therapy, vocational training. Her behavior record is spotless. The parole board will hear from her victims, if they choose to speak. I felt the old anger rise up. She wants us to help her get out early? She's asking for the opportunity to speak her truth, knowing you'll speak yours. It's actually, well, it's more honest than I'd expect from her. I thought about the letter she'd sent years ago, the one still in my desk drawer. Can I think about it? Of course. You have 4 months to decide. I didn't tell Marcus right away. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I requested a prison visit with Claudia. The facility was 2 hours south, a low-security federal prison surrounded by fences and watchtowers. I went through security, was patted down, and led to a visitor's room with plastic chairs and vending machines. Claudia looked different. No makeup, hair in a simple braid, lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. She wore standard prison khakis and a look of genuine surprise when she saw me. Mrs. Harper. I didn't think you'd come. I wasn't sure I would either. I sat down across from her, the table between us. You asked for someone to speak at your parole hearing. I did. But I wasn't asking you to speak for me. I just wanted to give you the chance to speak, period. You deserve to be heard. Why? Why do you deserve to be heard? Why this? Why the rehabilitation, the programs, the parole request? Is this another con, Claudia? She was quiet for a moment. I don't blame you for thinking that. If I were you, I wouldn't trust me either. She folded her hands on the table. The truth? Prison breaks you down. You have two choices: become harder, more bitter, more criminal. Or you face what you are. And what are you? Someone who learned from her father that people are transactions. That love is weakness. That the only security is money. She looked at her hands. I spent 3 years playing a role so well I forgot I was playing it. And when it all fell apart, I was relieved. Relieved? Because I didn't have to pretend anymore. Because rock bottom is at least solid ground. She looked up at me. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't get that. But I wanted you to know that the work I'm doing here, the therapy, the education, it's not for the parole board. It's because I don't want to be that person anymore. I studied her face, looking for the manipulation, the angle. What about Emma? I asked. Pain flickered across her features. Emma deserves a mother who can actually love her. I don't know if I'm capable of that. But I think about her every day. I hope she's happy. I hope she doesn't remember me as I was. She asks about you sometimes. Claudia's eyes filled with tears. What do you tell her? That her mommy made bad choices and is learning to be better. That she loves Emma but can't be with her right now. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for not making me a monster to her. We sat in silence for a moment. If you get parole, I said slowly, what would you do? My counselor helped me contact my aunt in Seattle. She's willing to let me stay with her, help me find work. I'd stay away from Portland. Away from you, from Marcus, from Emma. Unless Emma ever wants to see me. Then I'd do whatever her therapist thinks is right. You'd stay away voluntarily? Mrs. Harper, I took enough from you. I won't take more. I left that prison with more questions than answers. Was she genuine? Had she changed? Or was this just a longer con, a more patient game? I would probably never know for sure. I told Marcus about the visit. About what Claudia had said, about the parole hearing, about the choice we had to make. I don't want her near Emma, he said firmly. But, if she actually stays in Seattle, if she respects boundaries, maybe one day, when Emma's older and wants to reach out, we don't have to be the ones stopping her. So what do we tell the parole board? Marcus thought for a long time. The truth. What she did. How it hurt us. And that we don't oppose her parole if she honors the restraining order and stays out of our lives. Sarah squeezed his hand. That's fair. At the parole hearing, I sat in another courtroom, this one smaller and more institutional. Claudia sat at a table in her prison uniform, looking small and tired. When it was my turn to speak, I stood and faced the board. 3 years ago, Claudia Harper conspired to defraud me, to have me declared incompetent, to steal my home. She psychologically abused my granddaughter and manipulated my son. She caused immeasurable pain to my family. Claudia kept her eyes down. But I also believe people can change. I've seen Claudia's records, the work she's done in prison. I don't know if it's genuine. I might never know. But I'm not going to be the one who stops her from trying to build a different life. I turned to look at Claudia. I don't forgive you. But I'm not going to carry hate for you either. It's too heavy, and I'm too old. I sat down. Marcus went next, his statement shorter but similar. He made clear that Emma was off limits unless and until Emma herself, as an adult, chose otherwise. The board granted parole with strict conditions. Claudia had to stay in Seattle, maintain employment, continue therapy, and have zero contact with any of us without written consent. As I left the building, Claudia was being led back to her cell to await processing. Our eyes met briefly. I nodded once. She nodded back. That was all. That was enough. Emma turned 7. Then 8. Life continued in its ordinary way: school plays, skinned knees, arguments about bedtime. Marcus married Sarah in a small ceremony in my backyard. Emma was the flower girl, wearing a dress she'd helped pick out, scattering petals with serious concentration. I was 71 now. My knees ached more. I needed reading glasses for everything. But I was healthy, active, present. One evening, when Emma was 9, she came to me with her tablet. "Graham, can I ask you something about my birth, Mom?" My heart rate picked up. "Of course, sweetheart. Dad told me she made bad choices and had to go away." "But, what kind of choices? Why?" I had known this conversation would come eventually. Dr. Nguyen had prepared me for it. "Your mom grew up with some hard things in her life," I said carefully. "She learned to protect herself in ways that hurt other people. When she lived with us, she did things that weren't right, she lied, she tried to take things that weren't hers. And so she had to go to prison to face consequences and learn to make better choices." "Did she hurt you?" "She tried to. But I was able to stop her." "Did she hurt me?" I chose my words carefully. "She said some things that were hurtful. But you were very young, and you don't remember most of it. Your dad and Sarah and I made sure you were safe." Emma was quiet, processing. "Do you think she still thinks about me?" "I know she does." "How do you know?" "Because I saw her once, after she went to prison. And she told me she thinks about you every day." Emma's eyes widened. "You saw her? Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted to make sure she was really working on being better before I said anything. And I wanted to wait until you were old enough to understand." "Is she better now?" "I don't know. She's out of prison now, living in Seattle. She's following the rules, staying away like she's supposed to. But whether she's really changed inside? That's hard to know." Emma was quiet for a long moment. "Then, do you think I could see her someday? If I wanted to?" My instinct was to say no, to protect her. But I thought about what Dr. Nguyen and Sarah had said. "If you wanted to, when you're older, maybe when you're a teenager, and if Dr. Nguyen thought it was okay, then yes. We could arrange something supervised and safe." "Would Dad be mad?" "Your dad wants what's best for you. If seeing her would help you understand your story better, he'd allow it. But there's no rush, Emma. You have years to decide." She nodded slowly. "Okay. Can I think about it?" "You can think about it for as long as you need." She hugged me and went back to her room. I sat there, wondering if I'd said the right things, made the right promises. 2 years later, when Emma was 11, she brought it up again. "Graham, I think I want to meet her." We set it up carefully, a therapist's office, Dr. Nguyen present, Marcus and I in the waiting room. Claudia would come for 1 hour, with the understanding that Emma could end it at any time. The night before, Marcus was pacing the living room. What if this traumatizes her? What if it gives her closure? I countered gently. I should be in there with her. Dr. Nguyen thinks Emma needs to do this on her own terms. You being there might make her feel like she has to perform for you. Sarah put a hand on his shoulder. She's stronger than you think. The day of the meeting, Emma was quiet in the car. I drove her to the therapist's office and walked her inside. You don't have to do this, I told her. I know. But I want to. An hour later, Emma emerged. She looked thoughtful but not upset. How was it? I asked carefully. She's different than I imagined. Smaller. Sad. Do you want to talk about it? Not yet. Can we get ice cream? Of course. Later that evening, Emma came to my room while I was reading. Graham? She apologized to me. For not being a good mom. For leaving. How did that feel? Weird. Because I don't really remember her being my mom. Sarah feels more like my mom now. She climbed onto my bed. But it was good to see her. To know she's real. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. I don't think I need to see her again. Not for a while. Maybe when I'm grown up. But I'm glad I did it once. I hugged her close. I'm proud of you. That was a brave thing to do. You're brave too, Graham. Dad told me you're the one who stopped her from taking our house. I just did what needed to be done. That's what brave is, right? Doing what needs to be done even when it's scary? Yes, I said, my throat tight. I suppose it is. I'm 86 now. My body has slowed considerably, but my mind is still sharp. I live in the same house on Maple Street, though Marcus insisted on installing a medical alert system and a ramp for the front steps. Emma is 26, graduated from University of Oregon with a degree in social work. She works with at-risk youth, helping kids from broken homes. I like to think her own complicated story made her more empathetic. She visits every Sunday, usually with her boyfriend, a kind young man who teaches high school history. They talk about books and politics and make me laugh. Marcus and Sarah have 2 kids of their own now, Emma's half-siblings, ages 10 and 8. They fill the house with noise when they visit, and I love every chaotic second. Claudia lives in Seattle still. She sends a card to Emma every birthday and Christmas, nothing pushy, just letting Emma know she exists. Emma replies occasionally, short notes maintaining polite distance. I don't hate her, Emma told me recently. But she's not my mom. She's just someone I'm related to who made bad choices. Sarah is my mom. It took years to get there, therapy, conversations, tears, growth. But Emma found peace with her story. As for me? I learned that life is rarely about heroes and villains. It's about flawed people making choices, some good, some terrible, and living with the consequences. Claudia was wrong to do what she did. Prison was appropriate. But was she evil? Or just broken in ways she didn't know how to fix? I don't need to answer that question anymore. What I know is this: I protected my family. I fought for what was right. I did it without becoming bitter or cruel. And in the end, the house on Maple Street, the one Claudia tried to steal, remains full of love, laughter, and 3 generations of family who chose each other. That's victory enough. Last week, Emma brought her boyfriend to Sunday dinner. After the meal, while Marcus was doing dishes and the kids were playing outside, she sat with me on the porch. Graham, Derek and I have been talking about getting serious. And I realized I never thanked you. For what? For showing me what strength looks like. Not the loud, aggressive kind. The quiet kind. The kind that documents evidence and waits for the right moment and doesn't need revenge, just justice. I squeezed her hand. You would have figured that out on your own. Maybe. But I'm glad I had you as an example. She smiled. You know, my clients, these kids from terrible situations, they always ask me how to trust people again. And I tell them about you. About how you got betrayed by someone you welcomed into your home, but you didn't let it make you paranoid. You just got smarter about boundaries. That's a hard lesson to learn. But important. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I want to be like you when I grow up. You already are, sweetheart. You already are. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the neighborhood. The same sunset Robert and I used to watch from this porch 40 years ago. I thought about everything that had happened in this house, raising Marcus, losing Robert, the battle with Claudia, the years of healing. This house had witnessed pain and betrayal. But it had also witnessed love, resilience, and the stubborn determination of people who refuse to be broken. Claudia tried to take it from me. She failed. Not because I was stronger or smarter or more deserving. But because I understood something she didn't. A home isn't valuable because of what it costs. It's valuable because of what happens inside it. And no one could steal that. Not then. Not ever.